This podcast is recorded on the traditional lands of the Boonwurrung and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders and acknowledge their connection to this land. There's no justice without First Nations justice. Welcome to the Second City, a place where everybody is welcome and where every week we'll be asking and trying to answer, if the first city falls, how do we want to build a new life together in the second city? Welcome, Lorna. Welcome, hello. Alex. Hello, my love.
Hello.
Hello. So I had the kind of week this week that made me ask, who the heck is this society set up for? Because it doesn't feel like it was made for me. I had a bit of a week, which I'll tell you about later. But I wanted to start by just getting your general vibe. How do you feel about how things are set up? Who's winning, who's losing in this society? And how has it changed in recent years? Does anyone want to kick us off?
You want to say something?
Yeah, I feel like it's set up for, and this is going to make me sound like a kind of campus activist, but like it is set up for very fucking rich people, and everyone else is run ragged. If you're over a particular amount of wealth, you've got people to do shit for you. So you might feel stressed because there's a lot of demands on you or whatever, but like the real drudgery is not your problem. Even just like little things like the further away from the CBD that you live, the harder it is to get anywhere. We don't have good transport options. If you need healthcare and you're not wealthy, you can be waiting forever for like really urgent care. Education, you don't have choice, like just all sorts of things. So my answer is I think it's set up for wealthy people. I don't even think it's necessarily set up for like white men. I think if you are a woman but you've got a lot of money, you're fine.
I also think it's set up for what benefits those big corporations.
Yeah,
and everything runs for how is it going to benefit these huge companies, corporations, the legislation, the setup of our cities, workers' rights, everything for me feels like that it's set up for them rather than people.
Yeah.
I think I'm about to sneeze.
Oh, keep it in. Keep it in. It's important content.
I'm going to try and then I'll sneeze. Lol. I heard it described as vulture capitalism, which I thought was a very evocative term. Whereas I sort of think of it as like competitive individualism, because to me it feels like it's a very competitive as opposed to collaborative way of organising ourselves, where we're taught from a young age to compete with each other to have the most wealth and the most power. And I know from childhood that you can only get to the top of a pile if you're standing on everybody under you, right? And I really feel that this week, because I hope that what is the adage, bad news travels in threes. I hope that's not the case, because my first bad news in terms of economic system failure was losing my super. Our second piece of bad news is that the ANZ Bank this week has announced it's going to cut 3,500 jobs. And then that puts 3,500 people into the marketplace. And I think one of the other banks has followed suit with another 500 job cuts. So suddenly there's 4,000 people, of which one is my partner, with similar skill sets, flooding the job market, competing with each other in a sector that's, if anything, contracting and not growing, which is a scary thought for everybody in that boat. And it just suddenly made me think, and maybe because also we're at a moment in time where some of those big industries are beginning to do things like offshore, right, and send labour force overseas where it's cheaper to pay for people, or AI is the other thing that's kind of entering these sectors as well, which changes the economic landscape for people. And so I feel like it falls on us very much at this time to start thinking about, well, how are we organised? If, for instance, our society is set up competitively and only a small number of people can be at the top, well, that whole process is so alienating, isn't it? Like, I think about my partner was just saying that in talking to his colleagues now, they all know they're going for the same jobs, and it's awful. It's so alienating for all of them. And it feels to me that the whole Western culture is set up in this way, which is just a 24/7 mental health crisis, really.
So what are they doing at ANZ? Does everyone have to apply for a limited number of jobs, or they've just been told they're going to lose their job?
They've been told they're going to lose their job. And actually they had an admin error where the system that they'd set up emailed everybody before they'd been notified by their line managers. So there's a new CEO that's come into the ANZ. You know, CEOs come in on enormous pay packets, right, in banks, like stratospheric amounts of money, tasked with one fiduciary responsibility, right, one lawful responsibility, which is to the shareholders alone, which means this is a system whose only rule is growth, economic growth. And I often think about this and the system being not immoral, because it's not, but just amoral. It has no moral compass at all. It is just governed by whatever rules are in place. And if the rule says your number one job is to grow, then that's what it'll do at the expense of people, planet, community, anything else, workforce, right? So the CEO has a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders, but not to the employees. And so, yeah.
I just Googled the how many times a CEO's salary is that of the average worker in the 70s compared to today.
Yeah.
So the ratio was around 20-1 to 33-1 in the late 70s. And by 2021, it's nearly 400-1.
Whoa, that's wild. That's so wild.
And so the idea that like hard work alone is going to make you rich.
Yeah, BS. What absolute BS.
That's not how it works.
And so this gets to the worst part of this whole setup, right? Because this setup tells you that if anything goes wrong with this competition for you, that's your fault and that you're responsible for not being rich. And I noticed even that when my super crashed and I put out a reel on Instagram about it, most of the comments were blaming me and blaming the other people for that, like, clearly corporate fraud. We apportion blame if people don't succeed, and then that lets us off the hook from asking whether or not it's a system failure.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Oh God, I'm so horrified to hear about this, Sonia. I'm so sorry. Because we talk about systems a lot, but we don't talk about the human cost of the systems, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like little individual universes.
Yeah.
And then the ripple effects on other universes, right? And
the degree to, like, I was just thinking about it from our point of view, just from a utterly, like, just us situation. You know, we're in a rental with 4 kids and a dog. We've got enough savings for maybe 2 or 3 months rent. What do you do? So we have nothing to sell that's anywhere near enough to pay for housing costs. So we've started turning the heaters off, so it's very cold in our house, you know. And the thing that I find really upsetting about this is that I shouldn't be here, nobody should be here defending that they've worked hard. Because there's no human, whether they've worked hard or not, who shouldn't be able to heat their home, who shouldn't have a home in a rich society.
Yeah, because when we link like the ability to live like a human being to your capacity to work, I just want to remind people, firstly, what the slogan atop Auschwitz was, which was "Work will set you free." And what it means is that you have no value beyond your capacity to create wealth for someone else, right? So people with disabilities have no value. Children don't have value. Older people don't have value if we tie human value to your capacity to make wealth. And it's rarely wealth for yourself. I can tell you from the research that this is not how Australians view humanity. We don't see them as pure economic units. Like, we've been trained to talk about productivity and to justify all sorts of things by, like, it'll be bad for productivity. But when you really drill down with people, they value human life because human life is valuable. That is a core Australian value.
I find that very encouraging.
Our purpose is not like we weren't put on this planet and in our societies for productivity. That is not what the soul of a human, yearns or searches for. It's just really, it's a artificial, made up, realm, I guess, where that is the priority. But it's almost like the Matrix, that is not our real life, and that is not the purpose of our real life. And I don't know how you switch it so that becomes, who society or the reason for society is not productivity and wealth. It's for relationships, connection. And it's where we really need to flip it. Like we're almost like living, I don't know if you ever watched Stranger Things, it's like we're living in the upside down, and we need to flip it to the good side.
Oh my gosh, Lerner, chills. Yeah, I feel like for me the Matrix has really cracked this last 12 months or so. And I can't be alone in that, right?
Nope. People are really feeling it. They're really feeling it, and people are also scared in the groups as well. Like they're worried about sort of the global instability. They feel that there is something really fragile about the way we've set things up. People talk really openly, people you wouldn't expect, about their poor mental health. Because how can you be mentally healthy when you're constantly scared, when all the work you used to do used to leave you with a bit extra so you could have a bit of pleasure in your life. You could go on a holiday. You could, buy a couple of things because, it's fun. And now people can barely survive.
Yeah, one thing I remember from the election campaign when I was doing a lot of door knocking and when I would door knock somebody whose economic situation, they would use terminology that was a version of being on a mouse wheel going around and around and around, and that it's a despair cycle with no hope or optimism. And I remember feeling at the time like there's a percentage of the population that have been in that for a while already, and that group is growing, and it's beginning to encompass everybody who doesn't have a home, like the two-class system between people whose wealth is growing and they feel like they're a part of the society versus people whose wealth and worlds and futures are shrinking and shrinking. And I don't know if that is a fair delineation, but certainly to me, I remember when I sold my home after my marriage broke down, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I think I'm watching a ship sail away from the shore and I can't swim fast enough to get back out to it again. And that ship was any idea of a normal life. And I think the reason I raise this is because I've also door knocked people for whom this experience is not real to them at all, that their wealth is growing and they feel utterly connected to, they are taking, like, I live in a comfortable area and my children are at the local public school and they have friends on both sides of that fence, and some of those friends are going to Europe every winter to spend the winter somewhere warm, and the others are like me turning the heating off.
There's definitely two camps. There's some people, I know of people who absolutely thrived and got so rich during the COVID years. They did not suffer at all. If anything, it was the biggest boost for them, and they have been getting more and more successful every year since then. And then, you have the other group where it's exhausting. You are exhausted because you're working hard, you're not getting anywhere. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing this for? It's like you're just so tired. And you're never going to win. You're just like you said, the hamster wheel.
That is the feeling.
You're just running around, rugged in circles. For what?
Yeah.
Not that I want to say, like, it's all going to be fine, because fuck that. But the three of us caught up last Saturday, right? And that for me is a big core of for what, right? Like, just us, we're friends and we catch up, and there's no point to it other than we just love being in each other's company. And part of what makes me wild about how we've set things up is that we make that really, really hard for people to do.
Yeah.
And particularly if you live in places like, outside of the inner or middle ring suburbs where like there's one road in and one road out of your estate, there's no public transport, and it's impossible to get anywhere. So how are you going to see people, right?
No town square anymore. No,
Yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
commons. No commons.
Because, like we're lucky to live relatively close to each other. And so we're lucky that like the three of us can catch up. And I won't speak for both of you, but I remember how I felt after that. I was like walking on air just from the joy of seeing people that I love, right? So how can we be building something that makes it easier for people to have time to and to be able to physically see the people that they love?
I loved that. I loved catching up with you as well. It was like, but I have to confess that I was on such a high on Saturday, but then this week I found it harder because I allowed myself that crack of relaxing or just being at ease.
Yeah.
Whereas, when you're working really hard, you are
Yeah.
working really hard and you just keep going really hard. And when you just even allow that little bit of rage just to come in,
Yeah.
it makes picking yourself up again to get back to that really high level of working so much harder because you've had a taste of what living for just a moment, just for yourself and doing what your soul is yearning for. I've just really struggled this week because I allowed myself that moment of relaxing and being with my friends.
Yeah.
Such an interesting insight, learner.
Yeah. It's like I felt a sense of what the better world could be, and then I have to grieve it again. Yeah. I don't know how other people feel, but I feel rage sometimes, and it's not really my nature, but it's clearly it's a part of my psyche because I do.
And today I am really filled with rage because I'm tired. I'm just so sick of having to be on top of everything. I'm sick. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of having to know what I have to be doing, what other people are doing every second of the day, being responsible. I'm sick of it. Like, I've had enough. I just want to do something just for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can all three of us run away to Malta.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I know it's really random, but I found all these pictures on Unsplash of just like beautiful Malta porn. And like it's one of those things I'll almost certainly never get there because I can't afford to go, right? And I've got obligations here and, all the usual stuff. But it's my screensaver. And I think, we got to find the little ways of just escaping when we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Build that in.
Until we change society, until we vote in the people who are not going to be influenced by lobbyists and who do want to change the focus of what our societies should be. Like, I don't know, like, do Scandinavians feel like us?
No.
I don't know.
No.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
So is it because, like, we have a kind of US Western is like...
Because we
is
bought
it
into
our system?
the neoliberal dream, right? Like in France at the moment, there's a lot of social unrest. The French don't mind a demonstration.
Oh, they love it.
Yeah. Like when I was young, I spent a bit of time there, and people were just like on the streets, like they were fucking pissed off. And what they're protesting now is actually a bit serious because they've got this centrist neoliberal president and this really unstable government that is kind of centrist as well, and they're trying to cut back on the welfare state, and they're trying to make France more like the Anglo countries and, less European, and people are just not fucking having it. It's like, let me tell you guys a story. So there's this guy who we used to be kind of related to by marriage, who came from a really, really, really rich family, like stupid, stinking rich, like you can't conceive of the wealth. And he was over just to hang with us years ago, and he was talking about, like, he'd gone to some country overseas and, oh, it's so much better now. It's so much better. Like, there's actually nice stuff there now. And it stuck with me because that country was Israel. And what he was talking about was Israel moving from a socialist system where no one was rich, but everyone had what they needed. And they didn't, I mean, let's not get into, like, the very problematic shit that Israel's done to Palestinians. That's for another episode. But just, like, to its own citizens, it went from having no homelessness to, like, homelessness everywhere, but a very small number of people who were well connected and really lucky had the opportunity to get really fucking rich. And then there were businesses that sprang up to cater to those really fucking rich people. But the society itself is not okay. And you can see that it's not okay because there's a genocide going on. Sorry.
Yeah. Just need to sigh about that for a second. Yeah, the French, I mean, I thought you mentioned protest, and I was thinking when you were saying that about the anti-immigration protests that we had in the city here, which were, I mean, co-opted by alt-right groups in a way that was utterly frightening and unsurprising, but that still spoke to an undercurrent of concern that's happening and then gets misdirected, right, by these awful, nefarious interests.
I don't know that it was co-opted.
From the beginning, I reckon it was an alt-right thing.
Yeah.
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 And then they try to sugarcoat it by saying it's your worried mums and dads, you know, it's not us, it's not the Nazis, it's just regular people. But I reckon the whole thing was organised. Well, I don't know, but I just felt like it was a cover. Is that how you felt, Alex?
Yeah. I think from everything we've learnt, particularly about the organisers, like, it was always a far-right white supremacist thing, and they tapped into a lot of anxiety more broadly about pressure on housing and infrastructure. But, like, you know, I've heard people say on podcasts, and I think it's pretty fair enough, that, like, no one's worried about British backpackers taking up housing. No one's worried about, like, Northern Europeans coming here and doing whatever and putting stress on public transport or doctors. Like, it's brown people. They just don't want all the brown people coming. And what I've noticed for work, because aside from the qualitative stuff, I need to pay attention to information systems and how this sort of stuff operates, that there's been a coordinated thing on the far right globally targeting Indians. So it's not just here, it's also in the US, it's in Canada.
Didn't Jacinta Price make that awful comment and move from the front bench to the back bench as a result of it?
Yeah, right. And it's absolutely coordinated, and it's I don't believe a coincidence that Trump is in a big fucking fight with Narendra Modi at the moment.
Can I just say something with that? So I know, for example, in a lot of workplaces, the really competent staff are from India. They're Indians. They're really good at what they do. And so, of course, they're going to come. Either they're here or they're overseas, you know, because a lot of people work offshore now. And they get the work done. They work hard. They get paid what we would consider really shit pay. And so there you go. Again, the company's bottom line is doing what it's meant to be doing. And so that way, because people can see it physically happening, you know, they go to work and they see it, like at ANZ, they're going to see what's going to happen. And so then, you know, then the far right can feed into this. The government's not helping to dissuade this argument. They're not helping to fix any of the societal pressures. And so there you go. It's perfect bomb.
Perfect storm.
Yeah.
I certainly thought it was very telling that Nazi rally, the place they ended up was at Camp Sovereignty, where the people there are the only people in the entire country who are, in fact, aren't immigrants.
Yeah.
It's like, talk about disproving your own argument. Yeah. This brings us to a conversation then about underpaid and unpaid labour, 'em, and the need for second jobs. And, you know, there, they go to work and they see it, like you say, at ANZ, you know, because a lot of people work offshore now. And, you know, they get the work done. They work hard. They get paid what we would consider really shit pay. And so then, you know, then the far right can feed into this. The government's not helping to fix any of the societal pressures. And so there you go. It's perfect what does it mean nowadays that a household needs 2 incomes or more just to survive? What does that influence?
Well, I remember when I was growing up, my mum worked 9 to 5 in a traditional job, but then she was a very good hand knitter. She also took on jobs from, little boutiques from Melling Road and Toorak Road. So she would knit to make extra money. And then she would also do people's ironing to get extra money.
Fucking extraordinary.
So I don't even know when she slept. Like, she worked her ass off to make ends meet. And again, it was my mum who did that, not my dad.
Yeah.
My dad worked his 9 to 5 job, but then mum did whatever she could to pick up extra to make ends meet, or to have a little luxury, so we could go on a holiday, to Lakes Entrance or Phillip Island or Anglesea or wherever. Like, local holiday, nothing extravagant.
Who took care of the house, Luna?
My mum. Like, this woman, and I think it's very representative of a lot of her generation, worked around the clock.
Oh, not exactly a shock where you get your work ethic from, Luna. Christ.
Yeah, but now I'm angry. I'm filled with rage because I'm sick of it, and I don't work as hard as she does. She worked much harder. I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, I also feel like the generation that has glorified that did that in an era where that would get you ahead, or at least help you arrive at a place where you could hope to get ahead. And many of those stories of migrant families, extraordinary hard work that yielded then comfort in later years, and a generation bequeathed of comfort to the next generation. I feel that I'm hearing more from people in my own experiences that I do that too. I work a 9 to 5. I have other things that I do around the edges, and I look after my kids. But I still am not getting ahead. Actually, I feel like I'm just drowning more and more every year. That's the despair feeling of like a suffocation that I feel. I assume others are in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, in the research, there are people with middle-class jobs who are driving for Uber or Uber Eats or, other gig work, again, to make ends meet. And, I say middle class because I want to hit home that this is not just people at the margins, but there should be no job that is a full-time job that doesn't cover what you need, right? If a business cannot afford to pay you enough to have a living wage, that business doesn't have any business being in business, right? So like when I hear about, our media will love to talk to poor cafe owners that if they have to pay their workers properly, they'll go out of business. Well, then there's something actually wrong with your business model, mate. You're not entitled to slaves. We got rid of that.
I suppose it feels like that the way that society is set up in this model requires of the worker to deliver value that makes it worse to pay the worker. And I heard it described by a CEO on a podcast the other day as there are just some people who don't deliver value to the economy and therefore aren't worth the living wage as individuals, which goes very much against what you were saying earlier about what is the worth of a person. Is it their economic contribution, or is there something else that's of value as a human existing in this world and this life?
But let's talk about this in really hard-nosed economic terms, right? If you're employing someone and that person isn't delivering you the value that your business needs, well, then you need to get rid of that position, right? Like, then again, there's something wrong with your business model. A really interesting thing that I thought of, so my family by marriage, and they're very, very religious, very traditional, and it's a massive family, and they have this massive family culture where like they're constantly having these huge lunches, like with kids and stuff, it'd be closing in on 100 people now, and they're having like these huge lunches, huge dinners, constantly, and the only way that's possible is by like female labour, right?
Yeah.
Unpaid female labour.
Yeah, it's the women. We work our asses off. It's like even Sushi Mango, Sushi Mango, they joke about it. Christmas Day, the men are all, sleeping, eating, and the women are in the kitchen dishing out, cooking, cleaning, washing dishes, having 2 seconds to have their biscuits with the coffee, and they're back in the kitchen. And we all joke about it. But that was my upbringing. You know, mums work their asses off all the time.
What does it mean when women do start to work, right? It means that you can't have those big family get-togethers with all the labour-intensive stuff. So you either need enough money to be able to buy stuff already made, pay someone else to do stuff, or like, and the emotional labour of planning it all. Like, so we're seeing this really interestingly on my side of the family, which is like, you know, a bit more modern, like still, you know, somewhat traditional, but not like that. And on my side, like we do it for a meal that isn't like a proper big meal that someone has to cook. And so my parents who have like enough money, they just buy like a little bit of, you know, falafel and salad and some biscuits, and that just has to do because no one's got time for anything else. My mum still works.
But there are still families where you work, but if you're having a family event, the traditional setup is still expected. And that's when you have your breakdown. You know, because you're working, you've got lists of this is what I'm going to do on this day, then tomorrow I do this day, this is the day I do the shopping for this, fresh, like you fit everything in.
Yeah.
And perhaps I might be saying that from personal experience. There are still that, I don't know if it's pressure from yourself or from within, that you still have to meet that traditional full-on home-cooked spread of, you know, your nibblies beginning with, you know, and then dessert and everything, and still work and still maintain your regular routine.
Yeah.
This is where I wonder if I'm a little bit Pollyanna about things, because I feel when I hear that, I think this is why isolated family units are so much more difficult than community that does this all together. So you're not just one household, but multiple households with multiple people across multiple households leaning in. And I often fantasize about a world in which, you know, there's not one washing machine and one lawnmower per house, but there's shared resources, especially when my washing machine is on the blink, particularly in those times. Then, and maybe the way we've configured things so that everyone has their individual isolated castle makes it so much more difficult, particularly for women, I think, because we do carry all that hair economy stuff.
Second city, we have more communal living, you know,
I
where the
reckon.
village raises the kids, the village supports each other.
Yeah.
Maybe this is where the Mormons have got something, you know.
I wonder.
Maybe we could have multiple wives and multiple husbands.
I do joke to Yaron about the sister wives that I'm prepared to bring in.
Sister wives, I see their point there. But also sometimes I think I've heard about modern configurations of this. I don't know if it was in Australia or Europe, where they do sort of set it up like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly like the idea of community thinking with the common spaces and shared things, and also shared care of children, and also connection to older generations as well. I've always loved those stories of around the world. Like I think it's in the Netherlands where they build retirement villages next to childcare centres so that they are connected, right? So that you bring the community together at both ends of the spectrum where there's shared joy. And maybe that's just about rethinking how we structure it. So maybe if the economy is amoral, like I said, instead we apply to it not just, you know, like the CEO of the bank's fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders, but maybe fiduciary responsibility to the community, including the workers. I don't know. That was the idea.
How great would that be?
I think it's an amazing
you live
concept.
in a community, or like you have your common ground, you know, you have your gardens, your washing lines, your barbecues, you're all together, almost like the commission houses that they are now.
Right.
You know how, you know, like, because where I live, we've got the smaller, maybe 3-story commission flats. And you see they have a playground in the middle, they have their washing line in the middle. You know, you could use that as a model.
A model,
where you, or, you know, with the big build that the government's doing now.
Yes.
Build it, but build it as a community. not a gated community where you can't, not like that, but build it as a community where you've got your laundry room or, a playroom, a playground and all kinds of things, and, a little cafe in there.
I love that idea. I wonder if that could be a new way of thinking about expanding suburbs, not just this endless sprawl of individualism, but villages everywhere. I live in what I think might be one of the last little villages. It's the village of Middle Park, and it's extremely expensive to buy into this little utopia. I just rent here above my landlady, but it is expensive because it's so wonderful to live in community with one another. And everybody should be able to have that. I can only imagine that's good for mental health.
Yeah.
And empathy,
Absolutely.
right? If you're experiencing other people across different spaces. Where I live, the dog and I go for walks, and there's a cafe that always has the door open, and my dog knows, it's called Hector's, and my dog knows to go in to get a bit of ham from Hector every time we go past. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm living in a Richard Scarry page. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It is lovely.
My kids know all the local dogs, and they know the dog owners, but the dog owners are far less important.
True.
They're just the gatekeepers
Yes,
of the
that's
dogs.
right. Yeah,
And they know the cats too, but the cats don't belong to anyone. Do you know?
that's true. Yeah,
The people belong to the cats, and
they're timeshare
different dynamics.
creatures. Yeah.
But
so
then
true.
again, you need that time that you're not working, so you can go out and walk and bump into your
That's
local
right.
dogs and cats
Yeah.
and their owners.
Yeah.
I read this wonderful thing, and I checked, and it is actually from Kurt Vonnegut, where, like, his wife said to him, like, he goes, "I'm going out to buy an envelope," and his wife goes, "What's wrong with you? You've got money. You could buy 100 envelopes, and then you don't have to go out every time to buy a single envelope." And he goes, "What's the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to go out, go for a walk, and you see a couple of great-looking babies, and then you see the neighbourhood dogs, and then you have a chat with this person, and you see a fire engine, and you give the fiery the thumbs up. And, we're put on this earth to dance. We're put on this earth to fart around, And, I mean, personally, I couldn't think of anything fucking worse than going out and buying a single envelope. I'm buying 100, then I'm buying another 100 because I forgot I bought the first 100.
Classic.
But, like, I get the sentiment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of treating your local shops like a pantry. When my marriage broke down, I think I reflect on it now, and I think it was probably self-medicating that I would go for one or two items at a time just to have something to go off, a little task to complete. Kurt's awesome. Kurt's so great. So the other thing about having time is that then it frees people up to do things in the community that are just for the community, like volunteering, or like I have a friend who, we have olive trees up and down our street here, and he's part of a group who's self-appointed themselves to pick all the olives when it's ripe and crush them and turn them into oil. They must use an external press or something to create oil, which then the group of them distribute amongst themselves in the community.
Oh, gorgeous.
It's so great. It's adorable. Yeah. And they go out as little groups just up and down the public streets collecting all the olives before the crows eat them.
That's so good.
Isn't it great? I know, because it's such a lovely little thing, yeah. And they're out and about, and they're on my, nature strip every now and then, and we say hello, and yeah.
It's almost like you're in some little Greek village.
It's funny you should say
all
that.
white,
I actually
aren't
am.
they?
There's lots of little old yayas.
That's why.
Yeah, lots of little yayas. And some of the early Greeks here, because it was a working class area back in the day by the ports, and some of them were wise enough or prudent enough to buy up whole streets or shopping strips. So now they're asset rich, but otherwise, they live very frugally, of course, because they're European migrants. But yeah, so my landlady who lives under me is a yaya.
That is so good.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Love it. Well, do you know where they do live like that? And again, it's that, wonderful Mediterranean way of being, with a lot of Greek, a lot of Italian extraction. People, like, many of them would be second generation now, but I've really noticed this in Melbourne's, not quite inner, but like middle west.
Yep.
the way they talk about how they do community there is extraordinary. And if I wasn't tied to where I live, I would be off like a shot there.
Yeah.
They use
Where's the
Facebook,
Middle West, Alex? Like
so
what
like
suburbs?
Altona-ish,
Yeah, right.
Okay.
right? It's like it is still inner-ish, but not inner,
Yeah.
right? And they use their Facebook groups not to like freak out about crime and ethnics. They use their Facebook groups to like have this wonderful exchange economy where they're like baking stuff for each other and they've got too many lemons and
Oh, imagine.
the way of life that we dream
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. Yes, because the other component of my area is as the yagas either move out into aged care and it's bought up at several million a piece, is that it's become a very conservative area and a much more fearful area. And so our Facebook pages are replete with, crime reports and car break-ins. Yeah. I know from door knocking it's extremely surveilled, by those
No,
little
it's fine.
cameras here.
You need to go door knocking in like a mask and glasses and a cap.
Yeah, it would certainly end up on the Facebook page. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how could it be done differently? I mean, we've described a whole bunch of models that are lovely. How could we change things for ourselves here in Australia, in our areas? What could we do differently? And how all of country does it have to be? Can we build little communities ourselves from within the community? Do we need to have how do we make it better?
Look, I think there's little things that we can do for ourselves, that we have to do for ourselves to survive this hellscape. But having a purely self-help approach to this misses the big things that we all need. We all need more accessible, affordable healthcare, education, aged care, childcare. We all need this stuff. We need better transport. We need all the stuff that makes all the things possible for the good life, right? And so we need to come together and work for the people in politics who are going to deliver that stuff. And it gets back to what we were talking about last week, the fucking tax, because all this shit can be paid for. We're one of the richest countries on earth. We just don't distribute it effectively.
Yeah.
But, paying attention on platforms like Instagram, I don't know if TikTok delivers this sort of thing, but Instagram is not bad. Once you find a little thing of interest to you locally, it will start to serve you up good things of stuff that's going down that you like.
Love
and
that.
so just like keep an eye out to like where you can go. And even if you're tired, like lately I've had so many things where I nearly cancelled because I was so tired and I'd force myself to go and just the feeling afterwards.
Yeah,
I
worth
would
it,
always say,
right?
thank God I went.
Yeah. I always feel like that after I push myself to do something, even if it feels like touching a hot plate to go.
And also going back to that, I think, yes, tax is the nucleus of it all. And also the whole for-profit care setup is oxymoronic.
Yeah,
it
isn't it?
does
Exactly.
not work. So
Exactly.
that has to go. It's
I want to finish on a really interesting example that I'd like to keep our eyes on over the next few weeks and months, which is Mexico. I don't know if you've... Right? Does
love
anyone
them.
know more about this than me?
I just love their fabulous leader.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm a bit late to the conversation. Someone sent me just today, one of my other friends sent me a post about is she the president of Mexico? And it's a little bit of an example of what happens when you choose to invest from the bottom up instead of thinking that trickle-down economics is going to have any impact
Because she's a
at all.
scientist.
Yes. Oh my gosh, of course she is. She's evidence-based learner.
That's
Yeah.
right. She's one of the good ones.
Yeah. And
She's not from a finance background.
She's not. That's right. And so her theory is that when the poor rise, everyone rises. And so between 2022 and 2024, she's lifted over 8.3 million people out of poverty.
And before her, Obrador as well. So she was his protege,
Yeah.
and he had this masterful thing where his communication style, he was everywhere all at once and not giving the right a fucking look
Any
in,
space,
while he just reoriented the entire economy to lift everybody up.
Heck
And
yeah.
that's what's made room for her.
So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. Be everywhere all at once to lift the entire economy up. I just insist on it, hey.
Yeah,
I just absolutely insist on it. And Mexico, of all the places in the world where things might have felt overwhelming once, and they just turned that ship around.
Yeah, because they had a leader with heart and who isn't there for the bottom line, for profit. She understands.
Alex, final words?
We're closer than we think. Everyone is on board with this, right? We are so much closer than we think. It's the people who benefit from the way things are set up now, they bank on us, thinking there's nothing to be done, there's nothing we can do, this is how it is, this is how it's always been. It hasn't always been this way. It used to be better, and it can be even better than that moving forward. Most Australians, and I say this because I've got the absolute hard evidence for it, most Australians are good, decent people who want this better life for all of us.
Yeah.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Have you seen Bugs Life? You know, with the ants. Bugs Life, the cartoon, came out like in the 90s.
Yeah.
And how so like the ants have to collect all this food every year for the grasshoppers.
Oh, yes, I remember this. Yep.
Yeah, and then they realise, so there's this one ant who is kind of, really thinking out there, not like following all the ants. And he ends up saying that there's more of us, and if we all work together, we can defeat the grasshoppers because we have bigger numbers. And they do, and then they go on to live their ideal, this paradise, idyllic life. And I always think back to Bugs Life.
Yeah.
You have to watch it because it's a very good example of what we can achieve.
It's funny, I just saw a clip of that floating around on the internet the other day, so I feel like people might be starting to think that way.
Go watch it. Watch it tonight. Friday night viewing.
That's our homework, is Bugs Life. That's great. That's the level I'm at for homework.
Relevant for our current situation.
Perfect. I love it. I'm going to finish then on the quote from Ursula Le Guin that I love, which is, "We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable, but so did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings." Or ants.
Yes.
Brilliant note to end on.
Beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. I'm going to hit stop.